Everyone should have their science notebook. You should have your 2 pieces of homework. Your test the hypothesis page. We'll review that in class today. And then your surface tension and milk. That experiment you will turn in when class dismisses. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a little quiz. Now your quiz is very short, very sweet. It's only 6 points. You do get to use your science notebooks on this quiz. All right, after we complete that quiz, then I'm going to hand you this piece of paper here. We're reading through multiple experiments, and you have to classify the experiment. So figure out which step is getting followed within this piece of paper. There are 14 different steps getting followed, but you have to label them and classify them correctly. All right? Then after that, I'm literally going to go through the test and tell you key notes to highlight from your notebook. If you don't have a highlighter, I have highlighters you can borrow. We're literally going to highlight what will be on the test. So I want you guys to highlight that in your notes so that on Thursday, you will do awesome on your very first test in science. Yeah. That's right. Thursday is our first test. Now then after I go through that material, then we're going to review this test the hypothesis sheet. And the reason I want to review this in class is because you will have a similar scenario on your test where you have to figure out what did they do wrong. And you have to fix that on your test paper. Now the last thing we do in class today is you get a crossword puzzle. It is simply a study guide, okay? You study what's on the crossword puzzle. That'll help you be ready for Thursday's test. Notice I'm giving you 2 things to study. Crossword puzzle and the highlights in your science notebook.
What if we lose both?
That would be a tragedy. A tragedy. All right, so like I said, I want everyone to be successful on this very first test, okay? You guys, I want you to all be ready and prepared for it. All right, so first things first, let's take care of our quiz. On this quiz, you do get to use your science notebook. So let's all open our science notebook to the page titled World View. So everyone open up their notes to the page titled World View. So at this point, all quizzes should be collected. Thank you. And everyone should have the other handout. Can you spot the scientific method? So, oh, you don't have it? Did I miss you? Really?
Oh, no, you don't.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, so let's take a look at it. It says here, each sentence below describes a step within the scientific method, which we all know well. In fact, you've performed the scientific method multiple times, you've worked with it. So it says, match each sentence with the correct step of the scientific method. So you have here A, B, C, and D. So let's do the first one together, okay? The first one says, Stephen predicted. Ooh, that's a big key word, isn't it? The verbs will be really big key indicators. So Stephen predicted that seeds would start to grow faster if an electric current traveled through the soil in which they were planted. So which step would that be classified as? Miss Sweet?
Form a hypothesis.
Really?
Yes.
Why do you say that?
Because it says predicted, the keyword, and when you are forming a hypothesis, you want to predict what's going to happen and make an educated guess on your evidence.
Absolutely. So number 1 is form a hypothesis, B. So you see how we did that? You're going to do the same thing with all the others. So numbers 2 through 14, you can either quietly work on your own, which some people prefer to do, or you can buddy up and partner up and work together in a group, okay? If you do work together in a group, talk between the windshields or, wear the mask. Here we go. Number 2, it says, Susan said, if I fertilize my geranium plants, then they will blossom. It's an if-then statement. If-then statements are always going to be what, Jack?
They're very useful in science.
They are useful. Where do we use them?
Wait, did you say if then?
Hmm? Number 2 is an if-then statement. So Susan's thinking, if this happens, I think this will happen.
Oh, that's always D.
It's always D. No, not a conclusion. She's coming up with a really good guess.
Oh, hypothesis.
If this happens, I think this will happen.
B.
Hypothesis,
I was
yes.
wrong.
An if-then statement will always be classified as a hypothesis. Okay? All right, next. Number 3. Jonathan's data showed. It shows something. It's proving something. It's proving that household cockroaches moved away from raw cucumber slices. Ooh. So if it's showing that or proving that, what would the answer to number 3 be? Kate? Hello, Kate?
D. Drawing your conclusions.
Yes.
As a final answer.
That would be D, wouldn't it? All right, so D is number 3. Number 4, it says that Renee grew bacteria from the mouth on special plates in the laboratory. She placed drops of different mouthwashes. She's doing a lot of activity, isn't she? She's growing, she's placing drops on, she's doing it. That's a big hint. So number 4, Zoel, what do you say?
C, for test the hypothesis within an experiment.
Yes, absolutely. She's doing that experiment, isn't she?
Yes.
Anytime there's a lot of action and doing, it's always going to be testing the hypothesis. Good job. Number 5, Kathy used a survey. She used the survey to determine how many of her classmates were left-handed versus how many were right-handed. She's using a survey. She's in the middle of action. What would that be, Kendall?
C.
C, yes.
Wait, I said use, so would that be D?
She is testing her hypothesis here.
Kathy used the survey.
Yeah,
Kathy
she's
used-
using that survey to test her
It says
hypothesis.
use, so would
Hmm?
not using. Yeah.
So she used the survey to determine
That's what
how.
I'm saying. It's just easier
It
to
doesn't
write
tell the end
past
result
it.
though, does it? We don't know the end result yet.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, I can see where you come up with D. But, yeah, since she's in the process of using it, we're not given the final results yet.
Okay, yeah.
And that is the next step, though, isn't it? All right, good job. Let's see here. Number 6, Jose. Jose saw that bats were catching bugs after dark. And he got curious. He asked a question. He said, how do bats find the bugs after dark? Huh. What do you say is going on here? Abby?
A.
Hey, yes. He's asking that question, isn't he? You're finding a problem. Good job. Number 7, Justin wondered if dyes could be taken out of plant leaves, flowers, and stems. He's wondering something. Ooh, big key word, isn't it? So, Brooklyn, what do you say?
A.
A, absolutely. He's asking a question or figuring out a problem. All right, next. Number 8, Alice soaked 6 different kinds of seed in water for 24 hours. She planted the seeds. She used the same amount of light, so she's doing a lot of action here. Maxon, what do you say on number 8?
C.
Yes. She's testing that hypothesis, absolutely. Number 9, Bob read about growing plants in water, and he wants to know more. He wants to know how plants could grow without soil. So what is that, Drew?
It's A.
A, yes, he's wondering about something, isn't he? He has a problem to try to figure out. All right, number 10, Kevin said, if I grow 5 seedlings in the light, I think, ooh, this is a
Oh man.
I think statement, right? If this happens, I think this will happen. Remember we said that's always going to be what, Christy? Yes, a hypothesis. You got it. Number 11, Angela's experiment proved that earthworms move away from light. Ah, it proved something. Big key word there. Jack?
D.
D, yes. We have a conclusion. proof. All right, number 12. Scott said, if acid rain affects plants in a particular lake, it might also affect small animals. Okay. This is an if-then statement, isn't it? So since it's an if-then statement, Miss Sweet, what would our answer be?
A.
A? Defining the problem? It's an if-then statement.
Oh, if you form a hypothesis.
Yes. Remember, if-then statements are always going to be a hypothesis, okay? All right, number 13. Michael fed different diets to 3 groups of guinea pigs. Sounds like fun. His experiment showed that guinea pigs need vitamin C. Ooh.
How do you find that?
So at first he fed, that's testing the hypothesis, but then the experiment showed, it proved that guinea pigs need vitamin C. So what would the answer be there, Zol?
That would be D.
Yes,
The conclusions.
absolutely. Good job. All right, last one. Let's see here. Kim's experiment showed, same key word, that chicken eggshells were stronger when she gave the hen feed. So we have proof of something here. So what would the answer be there? Kendall? D, yes. All right, this is yours to keep forever and ever. You can take it home, you can put it in your room, you can like pin it up on your wall, you can
Throw it
draw pictures
away.
on the back. It's yours to treasure forever and ever. Or you can throw it away after trash or after class.
I might do
burn it.
Ah,
At the end of the year, I have to
here's what we're going to do next. This is muy importante. Very important. You have a test coming up on what day?
Saturday.
Thursday. So the next day you're back in school, we have our science test. So I have here in my hand your science test. What we're going to do next is we're going to literally highlight key notes in our notebook because I want you to study those key notes to get ready for our test on Thursday, okay? All right, so if you have a highlighter, pull that out. If you need to borrow one, I have extras over here, and they have been sanitized.
What if you've already highlighted on your notes?
You might put a little star by them or something like that instead, since you've already brightened your notes up. All right, here we go. Let's go to the page on science. It was our very first notebook entry. And on the page called science, you need to know these things. You need to know what biology is. So please highlight the term biology in your notebook or put a star by it.
I sort of like highlight everything.
Ah, yeah, you can put a star by that or something like that. Everyone needs to know that biology is also life science. They're basically the same thing. Yes?
Do we need to know observation?
Yes. All right, in fact, the next thing you need to highlight, you need to know the difference between an observation versus an inference. Ooh, the inference word. It's been a hot word in literacy and in science, hasn't it? So know the difference between an observation, using your 5 senses, and an inference, figuring out and making sense of something. Yes?
This is the chapter 1 test, correct?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yep, everything will be out of chapter 1. Now, another thing on that very first page that you need to know. You need to know the definition of science. I know that's very simple, but that's what this whole class is about. So you need to know the definition of science. So please highlight the definition of science in your notes. Now, another thing that you'll need to know from your notes on scientific method. So why don't you flip to the next page, flip to your notes on the scientific method. You need to know.
Next page, or is it 2 after?
Well, it depends on
Well, I
your
mean, like,
notes.
because world used before scientific method.
Right. So yeah, it depends on.
How you wrote it.
So go ahead and flip to the page on scientific method. In that, you need to know what makes a good scientific question. In other words, you need to know the scientific questions should be clear, they should be specific, and they should be measurable. You need to know those 3 things about a scientific question. In fact, on your test, I'll give you some bad questions that are non-scientific. And you have to figure out the scientific questions from the non-scientific questions. Okay? Also, under the scientific method, you'll need to know what variables are. We defined them. Now, we looked at 3 types of variables. On your test, you do not need to know the 3 types of variables, but you do need to know what a variable is. So please highlight the definition of variable. Also, on your scientific method page, you will be given these steps, and you have to put them in the correct order. That's pretty simple, isn't it? Now remember, from your work, your homework, I threw in a 6th step. Keep in mind, I may throw that in on your test too. Remember, we put in a step right here before hypothesis. Basically make an educated guess by gathering information, right? So that could be on your test too. But just be able to put them in order. Go ahead and, while you're on the scientific method page, highlight the definition of a hypothesis. You need to know what that is. A hypothesis is your educated guess. You also need to know that when you test that, it's called an experiment. So testing the hypothesis is called an experiment.
Do we need to highlight experiment too?
Yes, please. This is most of your notes, isn't it? So notice, the notes I give you are really important in doing well on a test. All right, let's go to the page on worldview. You should have a page on worldview as well. You need to know this about a worldview. What is it? What is a worldview? So highlight the definition of a worldview, please. Now just know and be assured, in this classroom we're going to obviously use the biblical worldview, right? But in science we're going to run into the naturalism worldview, or the naturalistic worldview as well. So just know the difference between the biblical worldview and the naturalist worldview, okay? You might even highlight the definition of naturalism. All right, and the last thing on your test, I will give you an experiment that's written out, and you have to figure out what went wrong with this experiment. What did the experimenter do wrong? So how is the experiment not fair? Now, I've given you some practice for that. If you remember, I gave you some homework that looked like this. Test the hypothesis, right? Go ahead and pull that homework out. What we're going to do now is review it so that when you get to Thursday's test, you'll do awesome on it. Because you have to do the same thing on Thursday's test. All right, so I'm trying to get you ready, right? So you have all your notes highlighted that are essential. That'll be on your test. I'm going to give you a study guide as well. That'll be a crossword puzzle. So I'm really giving you 2 things to study, right? Your highlighted notes and your crossword puzzle you'll get at the very end of class. All right, so let's go ahead and review this for now. Test the hypothesis. All right, this was kind of a fun assignment. You got to see what they did wrong and try to help them on their experiments. So in experiment number 1, we had Tara. And Tara was going to do a cool experiment. In fact, I was going to do the same experiment with you guys. But with COVID, I decided not to. Sorry. It says Tara wanted to find which popcorn resulted in the fewest unpopped kernels. Now, she purchased 3 bags. 3 bags of popcorn, all the same size, And then she sticks the 3 bags in the microwave at different times. Tara popped the first bag. For how long?
3:30.
3 minutes and 30 seconds. The second bag, she pops it for 3 minutes and how many seconds?
45.
45 seconds. And the third bag, she pops for 4 whole minutes. Wow. In the end, she poured out the bag, counted out the kernels. What did she do wrong? She was very unfair in this experiment, wasn't she? What did she do wrong that was completely and totally unfair? If you were a bag of popcorn, you would have been sad. But no, this is not fair. What was it?
She popped them for different amounts of time, and if you do that, you're not going to get sturdy evidence.
Right.
And so like, if you pop one, you have to pop them all for the same amount of time, or else it's not
Right.
going to be like a valid experiment.
Yeah, so she put all 3 bags in there for different times, didn't she? That's not fair. So to make it fair, she needs to put each bag in there for the same amount of time, doesn't she? So every bag should go in there for, pick a time, 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
That's fair.
That would be a fair experiment, wouldn't it? All right, so you guys did great. You identified what Tara did wrong, and you fixed it. Let's see if you can figure out what Jeremiah did wrong. All right, so in experiment number 2, we have Jeremiah. Jeremiah is testing paper towels and how absorbent they are. How much water or liquid will they absorb? He takes 4 different brands. He cuts the paper towels into the exact same shape and size. Is that fair? Okay, that's fair. Then he holds each paper towel under running water and observes. He just watches what happens. He forgot to do something. What did he forget to do? Drew?
2 things. One, he didn't put him in for the same amount of time like the other one. And 2, he didn't even test how it would hold the water.
He didn't test anything, did he? He just put it underwater and watched it. Did he measure anything?
How would you measure
And
that?
probably
How would he measure it? What could he do? Yes, Christy?
Very excited for this one because it reminds me. I have a milliliter container, so that's what made me think of this.
Ah,
You get a container with marks of milliliters.
absolutely.
You pour in, we'll say like 50 milliliters, and then you take one towel, and just like hold it in the water.
Right.
Once it's done soaking up, you take the towel out, and then you mark down where it was, fill it back up to 50.
Uh-huh. So if you put it in a measuring cup, you measure out 50 milliliters, you dunk the towel in, you pull it out, see how much the water level went down, right? That's measuring. Or you could squeeze the towel out
Yeah.
and measure it. Either way, it's measuring. That's what he missed, didn't he? He did no measuring whatsoever. So great job. You fixed his problem. Yes?
For the milliliter thing,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't it actually change so it's unfair because the first one doing it doesn't have any paper towel stuff inside of the water?
Well, you
Ah.
could just dump it out.
Yeah, you would always have to start with the same level, wouldn't you? So, for example, in Christy's case, she started with 50 milliliters.
Yeah.
When you go to the second towel, you do the same thing. You start with 50 milliliters,
I
right?
know, but I mean like this
The
stuff
paper
inside
towels.
the paper towels are still in the bottle, even if you wash it out.
Oh, gotcha. As long as you, after each one, you pull it out and you measure either how much water was soaked up or you squish it out. Either way,
Yeah.
you're measuring something. So, yeah. All right, great job. You guys figured out Jeremiah's problem, didn't you? You guys can do that experiment so much better than Jeremiah. Well, let's look at Tina and Jasmine's. Theirs sounds like fun. I'd like to do this. Tina and Jasmine take 4 pieces of hard candy, and they're trying to figure out which one lasts the longest. So, Tina puts 2 pieces in her mouth. And at the same time, Jasmine puts 2 pieces in her mouth. And they see which one lasts the longest. Sounds fun. Sounds flavorful. But they did something that wasn't very fair. What was it, Brooklyn?
They should have put one piece of candy in the mouth, timed it, then once it lost flavor, take it out, and then do the other one.
Ah, one at a time. If they put two in there, that's not really fair, is it?
No.
So one at a time. Now, notice how many mouths did they use?
2.
Do you think Jasmine and Tina have the exact same identical mouth?
No.
I bet one of those girls slobbers a lot more than the other.
And one is probably more acidic than the other.
Yeah.
So, using two different mouths isn't fair at all, is it?
Yeah, I know. That's what I said on my paper that they should have done. They should have
Right.
each done the same candy.
Right. Now, you could just get rid of mouths altogether, and you could take 4 cups of water, drop each candy into each cup.
But then you don't get to taste it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wait, after they dissolve,
It's
you can
hard-
drink the flavored water.
It's hard. It's hard to buy single pieces of candy. You'll probably get a pack of each.
Oh,
and-
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I thought then.
Eat all the leftovers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. All right. So did we fix their problem? Yeah, we fixed their unfairness, didn't we? All right, let's look at number 4. Demetrius. Now, Demetrius, this one's a little bit more difficult, but he definitely is testing the wrong thing. So let's see what he's doing wrong. It says Demetrius wants to find out if the, what's the word?
Size.
Size. Okay. So in number 4, Demetrius, he's trying to test out if the size of a ball will affect how the ball bounces. So what's he testing?
The size of the ball.
Size. Let's see if that's what he really tested. It says that Demetrius chooses 4, right? He chooses, 3. He chooses 3. He chooses a ping pong ball, a softball, and a bowling ball. Do they have different sizes? Yeah, those 3 are going to have a different size, aren't they? But a ping pong ball, a softball, and bowling ball, do they have more things going on? What else is going on, Drew?
The mass.
Uh-oh. They're not all equal masses, are they? They're not all equal weights. A ping pong ball is going to be super light. Softball will be a medium, and a bowling ball, whew, ouch, that's heavy. But remember, he wanted to test size. Well, he's actually testing size and weight or mass.
And you can't test 2 variables. 2 indeterminate variables.
We only want to test one thing at a time, don't we? So to make it right, how should he make this experiment fair? What should he do differently? Who can help us out there? Yes.
Like the same, or like different sizes of the ball, but they all weigh the same.
All right, yes. So yes, get different sizes, but they all need to weigh the same, don't they? Then he would actually be testing what he's supposed to test. All right, make sense? All right, number 5, you guys can, hopefully you did that. We're not going to have time to review it today. This paper here is yours to keep forever and ever. You can also hang on to it, or you can throw it away at the end of class. We have 2 things to take care of here at the end. You see, you need your study guide. Now you can study your notes that you highlighted, but you can also study your crossword puzzle. So I'm going to bring around your crossword puzzle right now. Use that as a little study guide. So you have 2 study tools, don't you? Your notebook and your crossword. Now you also have a second piece of homework that you haven't turned in yet. You probably want credit for it.